The immense dome of the apex pit gleamed under the three moons of Xerion Prime, its polished obsidian surface reflecting the stars like a massive eye staring into the cosmos. 50,000 spectators filled the tiered seating that encircled the arena, their excited chatter creating a constant drone that reverberated throughout the structure. The Xerion Empire's most anticipated entertainment was about to begin. Zara Blackwood stood in the holding chamber, the energy cuffs around her wrists emitting a soft blue glow against her dark skin. Her black hair was pulled back in a tight braid that hung down to the middle of her back, revealing sharp features and eyes that seemed to calculate everything they observed. She wore the simple gray jumpsuit given to all condemned, the fabric designed to highlight blood splatter for the audience's pleasure. A guard prodded her forward with an electrobaton, careful to maintain distance. "Human!" He spat the word like a curse. "Enjoy your last breaths." Zara didn't respond. Her breathing remained measured, her gaze fixed on the circular platform that would lower her into the apex pit, an ecosystem engineered specifically for death, housing predators from across the galaxy, arranged in a perfect hierarchy of lethality. For 3 centuries, the mortality record stood unblemished. No one thrown into the pit had ever emerged alive. The holding chamber door slid open to reveal the central arena. The crowd's murmur swelled to a roar as Zara was marched forward. Massive view screens suspended above the arena displayed her face, calm, composed, unnervingly serene for someone about to die. "Citizens of the Xerion Empire." The voice of tribunal adjudicator Vexar boomed across the arena. His towering figure, adorned in the crimson robes of his office, stood on a hovering platform at the edge of the pit. 6 slender arms emerged from his torso, each gesturing dramatically as he spoke. "Today we witness justice served upon Zara Blackwood of New Meridian, exile and saboteur." The crowd responded with thunderous approval. On the betting boards that lined the arena's upper tiers, numbers flickered and changed, odds being calculated, wagers being placed on how quickly she would die and which predator would claim her. "Her crimes are grave," Vexar continued, his voice a practiced blend of righteousness and theatrical flair. "Infiltration of the 7th Quadrant mining operations, sabotage of Imperial property, and, most egregiously, the theft and unauthorized liberation of 17 child laborers, rightful property of the Empire." At this, Zara's expression changed slightly. The faintest hint of a smile touched her lips. For these transgressions against imperial prosperity and order, there can be only one sentence. Vexar raised all 6 of his arms in unison. Adjudication by the apex pit. The platform beneath Zara's feet hummed to life. The energy cuffs around her wrists deactivated and fell away. The pit's engineers understood that completely defenseless prey made for a disappointingly brief spectacle. "May your death serve as entertainment and warning." Vexar intoned the traditional final words. The platform began its descent. Zara remained motionless as she sank below the arena floor, into the uppermost level of the apex pit. The crowd's noise became muffled, then distant, replaced by new sounds. The skittering of claws on stone, the drip of acidic saliva, the low hissing that signaled the approach of the pit's first tier of predators. Level 1 of the apex pit was a wasteland of jagged rock formations and shallow, fetid pools. The lighting was dim, simulating perpetual dusk. This was the domain of the acid spitters, reptilian creatures roughly the size of large dogs, with mottled gray-green skin and elongated snouts housing specialized glands that produced corrosive venom. They moved in packs of 6 to 8, surrounding prey before launching coordinated attacks. Zara stepped off the platform onto the uneven ground. Her eyes adjusted quickly to the gloom. She stood perfectly still, listening. The acid spitters were approaching. She could hear their distinctive breathing, smell their acrid scent. The first of them appeared from behind a rock formation to her left, its yellow eyes fixed on her, pupil slits narrowing. Another emerged to her right, then 2 more behind her. They were establishing a perimeter, preparing to close in. Spectators leaned forward in their seats, watching the scene unfold on the view screens. The commentary booth, housed in a transparent pod suspended above the arena, buzzed with activity. "And here we see the standard hunting pattern of the acid spitters," announced the lead commentator, a Xerian with distinctive purple markings indicating his academic status. "They've detected the human and are moving to surround her. Notice how they maintain perfect spacing, a testament to the pit engineer's selective breeding program." His co-commentator, a former pit keeper with half his face replaced by cybernetic implants, nodded enthusiastically. "The acid spitters have an impressive kill record. 79% of level 1 victims never make it past them. Their venom can dissolve human flesh in seconds." In the pit, the acid spitters began their approach, moving in slow, synchronized steps. Zara remained motionless except for her eyes, which tracked each creature's movement. When the first one launched its attack, a sudden lunge forward and a spray of yellowish venom, she moved with unexpected grace, sidestepping the stream of acid with precision. The crowd gasped. The acid spitter hissed in frustration and retreated, regrouping with its pack. "Interesting evasion technique," the academic commentator noted, "but ultimately futile. The acid spitters never tire of the hunt." The pack attacked again, this time from multiple angles. Zara dropped to the ground as streams of venom sailed over her head, then rolled to avoid another spray. She came to her feet in a fluid motion, now standing with her back against a rock formation. The acid spitters closed in, preparing for their final assault. The crowd held its collective breath, waiting for the inevitable moment when the human would fall. But Zara did something unexpected. As the lead acid spitter approached, she crouched down to its level and extended her hand. Palm down, fingers spread. The creature hesitated, confused by this unfamiliar behavior. Its head tilted, nostrils flaring as it analyzed her scent. Zara began to emit a low, rhythmic humming sound from deep in her throat. The acid spitter froze, listening. After a moment, it responded with a similar sound, though at a different pitch. The crowd murmured in confusion. This wasn't how the spectacle was supposed to unfold. "What we're witnessing is unusual," the academic commentator said, his professional composure slipping. "The human appears to be attempting some form of communication with the acid spitter." "Pointless," his colleague scoffed. "These creatures respond only to the hierarchical stimuli programmed into their genetics. They're killers, not conversationalists." Yet, as the arena watched in disbelief, the lead acid spitter stepped closer to Zara, now making no aggressive movements. It extended its neck, bringing its snout near her outstretched hand. She maintained her position, humming continuously. After what seemed an eternity, the acid spitter touched its snout to her palm, not to bite, but in a gesture almost like recognition. The other acid spitters remained at a distance, agitated but holding back, deferring to their pack leader's behavior. In the commentary booth, the experts were at a loss. "This is unprecedented," the academic managed. "There must be some malfunction in the creature's behavioral conditioning." Keeper Prime Zix, who oversaw the entire Apex Pit operation, was already barking orders into his communication device. "Run a full diagnostic on the level 1 predators. Check for neurological anomalies or contamination in their feeding regimen." But before any action could be taken, the floor beneath Zara and the acid spitters began to shift. This was part of the pit's design. If prey survived for more than 20 minutes on one level, the floor would reconfigure, opening passages to the next level down. The Empire's entertainment algorithms had determined that the current scenario was no longer providing optimal viewing satisfaction. As sections of the floor retracted, creating a winding path downward, Zara stood and began walking toward the newly formed descent. The lead acid spitter followed her. After a moment of apparent confusion, the rest of the pack fell in behind their leader. The crowd's murmuring grew louder. This wasn't supposed to happen. The acid spitters were supposed to remain in their designated level. "Technical malfunction," the former pitkeeper commentator announced firmly. "The containment protocols for the acid spitters appear to be compromised. I'm sure the pit engineers are addressing this anomaly as we speak." Zara descended to level 2 of the Apex Pit. the acid spitters trailing behind her like an honor guard. This level was designed as a dense jungle environment. Towering alien vegetation with bioluminescent properties provided eerie, shifting illumination. The air was thick with moisture and the sweet scent of decay. This was the domain of the shadow cats, predators that had evolved on a world of perpetual twilight. Their bodies were sleek and black, absorbing rather than reflecting light, making them nearly invisible among the shadows. They could phase partially out of normal space-time, appearing to teleport short distances. Their preferred method of killing was to materialize beside prey and sever the spinal cord with surgical precision. As Zara moved deeper into the jungle environment, the betting boards above the arena went wild. Odds were being recalculated at a frantic pace. The unexpected survival through level 1 had thrown the algorithms into chaos. Those who had placed early bets on a prolonged spectacle were already seeing massive returns. In the trophy tour hallway that circled the arena's perimeter, where guards escorted VIP spectators to view the preserved remains of notable pit victims, conversation had turned from macabre appreciation to confused speculation. "I was here when they threw in that Arcturian rebel commander," one veteran guard told his wide-eyed tour group. 7 arms, each one capable of crushing steel. And the Shadow Cat still took him down in less than 3 minutes. "What's different about this human?" asked a wealthy merchant, adjusting his viewing monocle to better see the screens mounted along the hallway. The guard shrugged. "Nothing should be. Humans are physically unimpressive. No natural weapons, mediocre sensory capabilities. The Empire conquered their home systems with minimal effort." On level 2. Zara had stopped in a small clearing. The acid spitters arranged themselves around her in a loose circle, facing outward. They seemed to have assumed a protective formation. "This is most irregular," the academic commentator said, his voice strained. "The acid spitters appear to be guarding the human." The shadow cats had begun to materialize at the edges of the clearing. First 1, then 3 more. Their gleaming eyes the only easily visible part of their bodies. They moved with liquid grace, sliding from shadow to shadow, sizing up both Zara and her unexpected companions. The lead shadow cat, larger than the others, with a distinctive scar across its face, phased partially into existence directly in front of Zara. The acid spitters hissed warnings, but didn't attack. Zara met the predator's gaze without flinching. She began to sway slightly, her movements mimicking the fluid motion of the shadow cats. The lead cat watched, its head following her movement with predatory focus. Then, to the astonishment of everyone watching, Zara began to emit a series of low-frequency sounds, not unlike those she had used with the acid spitters, but more complex, with subtle modulations that seemed to carry meaning. The shadow cat's ears twitched. It took a step closer, then another. The acid spitters tensed but remained in their positions. "What we're witnessing defies explanation," the academic commentator whispered, as if afraid to break the spell of the moment. "The human appears to be communicating with the shadow cats using some form of low-frequency vocalization." "Impossible," his colleague insisted. "Shadow cats respond only to visual stimuli and pheromone signatures. They have no capacity for auditory communication." Yet the evidence before them suggested otherwise. The lead shadow cat was now circling Zara slowly, maintaining eye contact. She continued her swaying motion, turning to keep facing the predator, her vocalizations continuing in what seemed like a complex pattern. After completing 3 full circles, the shadow cat stopped directly in front of her. It lowered its body in what appeared to be a gesture of submission, then rose and moved to stand beside her. One by one, the other shadow cats emerged fully from the shadows and approached. Each went through a similar, abbreviated ritual, a brief circling, an exchange of vocalizations, then acceptance into what was becoming an increasingly bizarre assembly. In the command center overlooking the arena, Keeper Prime Zix was on the verge of apoplexy. "This is sabotage," he roared, his scales flushing crimson with rage. "Someone has tampered with the Predator's conditioning. Find the responsible parties and have them executed immediately." Technicians scrambled to run diagnostics. Security personnel began interrogating the feeding staff. But no explanation was forthcoming. Every system showed normal operation. The predators were behaving outside their programming not because of malfunction, but because of something else. The floor of Level 2 began to reconfigure. The 20-minute survival threshold had been reached again. Passages opened, leading down to Level 3, the final and most lethal environment of the Apex Pit. Zara moved toward the descent, now accompanied by both the acid spitters and the shadow cats. The crowd was in an uproar. Many were on their feet, pointing and shouting. The betting systems had frozen entirely. The algorithms couldn't process the unprecedented scenario unfolding before them. Tribunal Adjudicator Vexar's hovering platform moved to the center of the arena. Technical difficulties are being addressed, he announced, though the uncertainty in his voice undermined his words. The spectacle will proceed according to tradition. The human will face judgment in the final level. Level 3 of the Apex Pit was a realm of perpetual darkness and cold. The only illumination came from patches of bioluminescent fungi that cast an eerie blue glow over the landscape of sharp, crystalline formations and deep crevasses. The air was thin, barely breathable, preserved at the minimum oxygen level necessary to sustain life and combustion. This was the domain of the Shadow Moor, the apex predator for which the pit was named. Only one existed in the pit at any time. It was a creature of nightmare, bioengineered by combining the most lethal attributes from a dozen species. It stood 3 times the height of a human when fully erect, with a segmented exoskeleton covering powerful musculature. Its head featured compound eyes that could see across multiple spectrums and a maw lined with serrated teeth designed to shear through bone and metal alike. Multiple limbs ended in either razor-sharp claws or prehensile tentacles equipped with venomous barbs. In the 3 centuries of the pit's operation, no one had survived more than 5 minutes in the presence of the Shadow Moor. As Zara descended into Level 3, her unlikely entourage of acid spitters and shadow cats followed. The temperature dropped dramatically. Her breath became visible in the cold air, but she showed no sign of discomfort. The shadow cats seemed at home in the darkness, while the acid spitters huddled closer together, clearly less comfortable in this environment. The commentary booth had fallen silent. The experts had no framework to explain what they were witnessing. Eventually, the academic cleared his throat. We now see the condemned entering Level 3, where the Shadow Moor awaits. Despite the unusual circumstances preceding this moment, we can be certain that the Shadow Moor will fulfill its purpose. Its killing instinct transcends any communication attempts or behavioral anomalies. His colleague merely nodded, eyes fixed on the screens. Zara moved cautiously through the crystalline landscape, her escorts forming a perimeter around her. For several minutes, nothing happened. The silence in the arena was absolute. 50,000 spectators holding their breath collectively. Then it came, a deep, reverberating sound that was felt as much as heard. The Shadow Moor was approaching. The acid spitters hunched lower to the ground, their protective circle tightening. The shadow cats moved restlessly, their phasing ability activating intermittently in response to their agitation. A massive crystalline formation to Zara's left shattered as the Shadow Moor smashed through it. The creature emerged into the blue glow of the fungi, its immense form even more terrifying in the dim light. It rose to its full height, towering over Zara and her companions, and emitted a deafening roar that sent shards of crystal raining down from the ceiling. The acid spitters and shadow cats held their positions, though their body language conveyed clear fear. This was the ultimate predator, the top of the carefully engineered hierarchy, designed to kill anything and everything in its domain. Zara stood her ground. She showed no sign of fear, only intense focus. As the Shadow Moor took a thunderous step toward her, she raised both hands, palms forward, and began to emit a new vocalization, deeper, more resonant than those she had used before. The sound seeming to come from her entire body rather than just her throat. The Shadow Moor paused, its compound eyes fixed on her, multifaceted surfaces reflecting the blue glow around them. It tilted its massive head, as if listening. Zara continued her vocalization, maintaining eye contact with the creature. She took one step forward, then another. The acid spitters and shadow cats remained where they were, forming a semicircle behind her. The shadow moor lowered its head until it was level with Zara's. Its hot breath washed over her face, carrying the scent of previous kills. One clawed appendage rose, positioned to strike. The arena was silent save for the sound of Zara's vocalization, which was being amplified through the audio systems for all to hear. The betting boards remained frozen, the algorithms having given up entirely on predicting this outcome. The Shadow Moor's claw remained poised to strike for what seemed an eternity. Then, slowly, it lowered. The creature's posture shifted, becoming less aggressive. It settled onto its lower limbs, bringing itself even closer to Zara's level. She maintained her vocalization, now adding subtle variations that seemed to form a pattern or language. The Shadow Moor responded with sounds of its own, deep, resonant tones that complemented Zara's vocalizations. After several minutes of this exchange, the Shadow Moor did something that caused even the most jaded pit veterans to gasp in shock. It lowered its massive head to the ground in front of Zara, in an unmistakable gesture of submission. In the command center, Keeper Prime Zix stared at the monitors in disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered. The Shadow Moor is genetically incapable of submission behavior. Its aggression response is hardwired into every cell of its being. Yet the evidence before him was undeniable. The Shadow Moor, the ultimate killing machine, the pride of the Empire's genetic engineering program, had submitted to a human woman with nothing but her voice and her unwavering gaze. What happened next would be debated, analyzed, and mythologized throughout the Empire for generations to come. The Shadow Moor rose from its position of submission and moved to stand beside Zara. The acid spitters and shadow cats adjusted their formation to accommodate the massive newcomer. And then, as one, the entire group began moving, not deeper into level 3, but back toward the passage to level 2. "They're retreating," the academic commentator asked, his voice barely audible. His colleague didn't respond. There was no precedent for this, no protocol to follow. The predators, led by Zara, ascended from level 3 to level 2, then continued upward to level 1. The pit's automated systems, designed to prevent prey from escaping, attempted to close passages and erect barriers, but the Shadow Moor simply smashed through them. The shadow cats phased through solid walls, rematerializing on the other side to disable security measures. Even the acid spitters contributed, their corrosive venom dissolving metal barricades. Emergency protocols were activated. Keeper Prime Zix ordered the release of the deep pit beasts, monstrosities normally kept in reserve below level 3, used only when the main attractions needed to be replaced. But when these creatures emerged into level 3 and caught the scent of the departed group, they too began to follow the same path upward, as if drawn by an irresistible call. Tribunal Adjudicator Vexar's voice boomed across the arena, now tinged with panic. "Remain calm. Security protocols are engaged. The situation is under control." But it wasn't. The arena's emergency exits began to open as spectators decided that watching from a safe distance, perhaps via broadcast from their homes, might be preferable to remaining in the vicinity of multiple escaped apex predators. Zara and her growing entourage reached the central platform that had initially lowered her into the pit. The platform wasn't designed to ascend with weight on it, another safety measure to prevent escape. But the Shadow Moor solved this problem by simply tearing the platform from its moorings and, with the assistance of the shadow cats and the newest deep pit arrivals, physically pushing it upward through the shaft. The sounds of destruction and chaos echoed throughout the arena as the platform smashed through barrier after barrier, ascending inexorably toward the main level. Security forces scrambled to form a perimeter around the exit shaft, weapons charged and ready. When the platform finally burst through to the arena floor, what emerged was a sight beyond imagination. Zara Blackwood, standing calmly at the center of a gathering of the most lethal predators in the known galaxy, all arrayed around her not as captors, but as followers. The security forces hesitated. Their weapons were designed to handle individual escaped predators, not an organized group led by a shadow Moor. The creatures spread out across the arena floor, causing the remaining spectators to flee in terror. Yet, remarkably, the predators made no move to attack anyone. They simply secured the space, establishing a perimeter around Zara. Tribunal adjudicator Vexar's hovering platform retreated to a safe distance. This is unprecedented, he stammered, his ceremonial confidence entirely evaporated. The human has somehow corrupted the natural order of the pit. Zara looked up at him, her expression calm but resolute. When she spoke, her voice carried easily across the now quiet arena. There is nothing natural about your pit, adjudicator. These beings were never meant to kill for your entertainment. They are individuals, with intelligence and dignity that you chose to ignore. Absurd, Vexar retorted, though he kept his distance. They are animals, bred for specific purposes. They are living beings, Zara countered, capable of choice when given the opportunity, capable of respect when shown respect. She placed a hand on the massive foreleg of the Shadow Moor, which had positioned itself protectively beside her. Your empire's greatest mistake was assuming that dominance can only be established through fear and pain. There are other ways to communicate, other paths to understanding. Keeper Prime Zix had arrived on the arena floor, surrounded by a squadron of elite security officers. Kill them all, he ordered, his scales now a deep purple with rage. Reset the entire pit ecosystem. But as the security forces raised their weapons, the predators responded with a coordinated defense posture that made even hardened veterans hesitate. The Shadow Cats phased partially out of reality, becoming nearly impossible to target. The acid spitters formed a front line, ready to spray anyone who approached. The Shadow Moor and the deep pit beasts created an imposing wall of lethal capability. Zara stepped forward, separating herself slightly from her defenders. There has been enough killing, she said. I came to your empire to free children from bondage. I would rather not add to the bloodshed. A tense standoff ensued until a new voice entered the conversation, transmitted from the imperial palace itself. The emperor's regent, speaking with the full authority of the throne. Stand down, all forces, the voice commanded. This situation will be resolved diplomatically. Keeper Prime Zix turned to the source of the transmission, outraged. Diplomatically? These are animals, and she is a condemned criminal. These animals have just demonstrated intelligence and coordination that our best scientists claimed was impossible. The regent replied coldly. And this criminal now commands the most lethal force ever assembled in the Apex Pit. The Empire's position has changed. Keeper, adapt, or be replaced. Over the next several hours, as the arena was evacuated and secured, representatives from the Empire's diplomatic corps arrived to negotiate with Zara Blackwood. The terms were straightforward: amnesty for her and safe passage off Zirian Prime, in exchange for releasing her control over the predators. I don't control them, Zara explained to the bewildered diplomats. I've simply established mutual respect. They choose to follow me. Then, ask them to return to the pit, the lead diplomat suggested. Zara shook her head. They've tasted freedom now. Returning them to captivity would be a betrayal of trust. What would you have us do? Allow them to roam free throughout our capital? No, Zara said thoughtfully. But there is a nature preserve on your southern continent, is there not? A place where they could live according to their own natures, not as entertainment for your citizens. The negotiations continued through the night, but the outcome was inevitable. The Empire, facing the unprecedented situation of a human woman backed by the most lethal collection of predators ever assembled, had little choice but to accede to her requests. By morning, transport vessels were being prepared to relocate the predators to the southern preserve. Additional demands from Zara, including the immediate cessation of child labor in the Empire's mines and a complete review of the criminal justice system, were reluctantly added to the agreement. As Zara prepared to board her own transport, which would take her back to human space, Tribunal adjudicator Vexar approached her, from a safe distance, with the Shadow Moor watching his every move. How? He asked simply. How did you do it? Our scientists spent centuries perfecting those predators' aggression responses. Zara regarded him thoughtfully. Your scientists focus solely on fear, pain, and dominance, the lowest forms of motivation. You never considered that these beings might respond to respect, to being treated as individuals rather than tools. But the vocalizations, the gestures, how did you know? I studied, Zara said with a small smile. Before I came to free those children, I spent months learning everything I could about your pit and its predators. Not how to kill them, but how to understand them. The human empire has its own history with predator species. We learned long ago that true strength doesn't come from dominating nature, but from finding harmony with it. She turned to go, then paused. Your empire calls itself advanced, civilized, yet you built an entire entertainment complex around watching living beings tear each other apart. Perhaps it's time to reconsider what civilization truly means. With that, she boarded her transport. The Shadow Moor and several of the other predators watched her departure, then turned toward their own transports, ready to begin new lives in the preserve. In the aftermath, the Xerian Empire's cultural foundations experienced a seismic shift. The apex pit was permanently closed. Educational programs were established to study interspecies communication. Diplomatic overtures were made to the human systems, acknowledging a depth of understanding that the Empire had previously dismissed. And on distant worlds, the story spread. Of a human woman condemned to die, who walked into the pit of ultimate predators and emerged not as prey, but as leader. Of beasts engineered for killing, who chose to follow rather than devour. Of an empire built on domination, forced to reconsider the true nature of power. They threw her into the apex pit. She walked out with every beast behind her. And nothing in the galaxy would ever be quite the same again.